Well, here we are. Pro Tools 110 ebook, exercise 10. Yes, exercise 10. Wow, we've reached the end. This is like the 20th chapter, the 20th exercise. You guys have rocked it. This is like 600 pages of material in a semester. It's incredible. So first of all, congratulate yourselves. Second of all, let's get into it. Exercise 10 is a big one. 7, 8, 9, and 10 are definitely all big ones. And this one, I would say, is definitely dives pretty deep into mixing. Chapter 10 definitely goes through a lot of, I would say, intermediate level mixing techniques. And this exercise just kind of goes over a couple of them. So, let's just get started. Getting started. Okay, so open up 110 exercise 6. If you've created it previously, but if it's not available, mine is not. Just go to your 110 download media folder and go to folder 5, Trouble. This will be a music session. Double click on it. We are going to name it 110 exercise 10 with your initials. We'll go ahead and leave it since it's a music session. 24-bit, 44.1, stereo mix as usual. Create, and we will put this in the Trouble folder just to keep everything tidy. Oh, that's right. There's a lot of stuff in here, isn't it? Oh yeah, this has got a bunch of MIDI and stuff. Okay, that's why we're doing this one. Okay, I'm going to close the transport window just to save some room. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is deal with mix groups. Okay, when you see a session like this that has a relatively large amount of tracks, you may be like, how am I going to mix this thing? Well, it's easier if you look at things as groups. So for example, in this one, we've got a whole drum section. What we can do is, and the song is pretty consistent from beginning to end. So based on that information, we know the kick drum is pretty much going to be at a level the whole time, at this level the whole time. We know the snare is going to be at this level the whole time. We're not going to be changing the faders too much or at all in this particular instance of the drums. But maybe we want all of the drums to be grouped together. So if I move one of the drum faders, all of the drum faders will move in unison. Because I know I like how the drum sounds, the individual drums sound relative to each other with these fader locations, right? But sometimes maybe I want the drums to go down a little bit. Sometimes I want them to go up a little bit, but I don't want to lose the fact the snare is always on top and the kick is always right underneath the snare and the hi-hat's always really low. I want all that to stay the same, but I want all of them to move in unison together. That's what group mixing is. So let's start showing you how to do that. First, go into your mix window. Select all of the drum tracks by clicking on the track nameplate for the first drum, kick, and then holding shift while clicking the nameplate for the last drum track, room mics. So we're going to click on kick and then shift click on room mic, and then it'll just highlight everything in between. Just like that's how it is like in Microsoft Word. You select something and then you go down to something else, shift click, everything in between gets selected. It's one of the things that every program does, pretty much. Okay, so here we are. Go up to Window, Mix. Boom. Nice. So, snare, hi-hat, boom, 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 boom. Okay, yes, there we go. So we want to click on snare, and then go to track 12, which is room mics. Shift click, boom. Now they're all selected. You can also see up in the track list that they're all selected. And this session was already mixed all the faders are in place right now. We don't have to do that. but we want them to stay. We want these guys. Oh, actually, no, I want to kick to root mic. There we go. So we want 5 through 12 selected. I want all these faders to stay in these positions. So what I'll do is, so if I go like this, for example, or go like this, for example, I've screwed up the whole dynamics between the different drums. However, if we group them together, we'll be good to go. So choose track, group, or press Command G or Control G if you're on Windows to create a new mix and edit group. The group dialog box will appear. We want to name the group drums and deselect follow globals. Okay, here is what globals are when you're dealing with groups. Global attributes. They provide a quick way to set up the basic attributes that you know you will want under group control for all of your groups. They are useful when you don't know specifically which attributes you want to use right away. So you could have several different groups. So if I want certain attributes on one group and it's set for globals, then that means all of the groups will then have those attributes as well. So in this case, we do not want globals selected. That means that this group will be a unique group. Things we do to this group won't be attributed to the other groups. It's got its own world. Okay, so it says to right here, groups. You see, we've got this track window and we had a clip list, but this whole time, whether we've been in the edit window or the mix window, there's been this little thing we haven't played with too much, and it's called groups. So if you click on groups, we can click on new group. We can also hit Command G or Control G if you're in Windows. And there you go. As you can see, currently in group, these guys right here, because we selected them before we chose create new group. We want to call this group drums, and let's see here. It said to uncheck follow globals, I believe. Boom. VCA is like a different type, is a type of track. VCA tracks are super cool. That's a 200 level thing though. If you want to know what VCA tracks are, I can tell you after this class is over, because it's 200 level stuff, but it is cool, I promise you. Okay, so uncheck follow globals, click on attributes to configure the linked mixing attributes. Enable the volume checkbox to link the volume faders for the member tracks. This is key. This is key. This is primarily how a lot of people use groups, is to link the volume faders. So we want to attributes, volume, boom. So this is telling this group that we want our volume faders to be linked. So let's see what else they have us do. Just that, right? Okay. Click OK to close the box, and the drums group will be created and made active in the group mix. So hit OK. Boom, look, now we have a new group called drums. And if you look, this has been here the whole time. No group, no group, no group, no group. Drum, 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 drum. So we could just visually see that we've got a group going on here. So now watch what happens when I move the kick fader. They all move together. So if I know that this is how I want my drum like volume fader arrangement to be, I can put them all in the group, and then when I'm mixing, I'm like, oh, the drums are too high here. Boop. There you go. Just brought them all down a couple decibels. And check this out. If I go and unselect drums, oops, oh, hold on. There we go. Look, no group, and now look. So you can see these groups are ready to go as soon as I click on the groups. So for example, if I have done this and then halfway through I'm like, oh, you know what? At this point in the song, I want the snare to be a little lower in the mix. I could just deselect the drum group, bring the snare down a little bit, reselect the drum group, and there you go. Super cool. So when this is active, when the group is highlighted, that means the group is active and they're locked together, ready to go. As you can see, we have a snaps group, which is this stuff right here. See that? And we have a horns group, which are these two guys right here. And then if you click on all, they are all, as you can see it says all, they're all linked together. And then it's almost kind of like having a master fader. Pretty cool. So that is basically what groups give you the power to do. Lock certain tracks together and move them in unison. So, let's see. Balance the horns group, drum groups, and snaps group against the MIDI guitar and bass tracks. Try raising the level of each group 3 to 5 decibels and adjusting the overall balance between groups to taste. So, let's see here. Let's do it. So we've got some automation going on. I want the drums louder. Highlight the drum group to turn it on. Make the horns a little louder. Maybe bring the snaps up a little more too. Pretty cool, huh? It's just that simple. And if I'm like, oh, maybe the drums are too loud, you get the idea. Super fun. So now creating send and return effects. In this section, you will create a send and return effect to add a delay to the session using route to tracks. One thing we learned, it's such a shame they don't do it in this exercise, but in chapter 10 in the beginning there's something called folder tracks, routing folder tracks. That is basically the replacement of aux tracks. We learned what aux tracks are. You can use routing folder tracks to do the same thing, and it's a lot easier. So if for some reason you've skipped ahead and haven't read chapter 10, look up and read and practice routing folder tracks. It's a huge deal, and it makes the whole like routing track thing with aux tracks so much easier. But right now it looks like I don't think we go over that in exercise 10, unfortunately. So it's something you have to do on your own, but they talk all about it in the beginning of chapter 10 under here of using folder tracks for submixing. Okay. Route a send to a new track. Did a little tangent there. To get started, we'll create a new send on one of the snaps tracks and route it to a new aux input. Then you will copy the send to other new two snaps tracks. Great. So click on the track nameplate for the reverb track to select it. This will allow me the new track you create to be placed adjacent. So we'll do that. Locate snaps 1 and click on send selector B. Great. Track nameplate, reverb. So remember, whatever you click on, now if I go to track new, it'll make a new track just right next to whatever I have highlighted. So that's why I've selected this, because I know I want another track to go right after it. Okay, snaps 1 and click on send selector B, select a new track, and then the new track dialog box will open, and we're going to name it D delay. and uncheck the create next to current track option. See, we're getting into details here. So, okay, here's snaps 1. Oops, keep that selected. Here's snaps 1. Here's the send right here. This is send selector B. Here's A. It's already got something in it. We're going to select on send selector B, the empty one. Track. Let's see here. New track. So by default, it's like, oh, you probably just want to create a track next to the one that you're on. But we don't in this case. We want one to go next to this guy. So we're going to uncheck that. It's going to be a new stereo aux input called delay. Oh my gosh. There we go. Create. Boom, right there. And there's my new little send fader. Okay. Now a send window will open up with the snaps 1 track. Great. In the send window, raise it to about -7.5. Close the send window and finished. Okay, as you know, whenever you make a new send, the fader is always down, so the send is silent. So we want to go up. And what is the shortcut for fine-tune adjustments? Hold down Command or Control on Windows, and then we can really fine-tune it. You can also enter in the value if you know it, which we do with -7.5. Okay, so it's at -7.5. Now defined what this send fader is. So we can close it. Now we can option drag or alt drag on Windows to copy this send from snaps 1 to snaps 2 and then do it again for snaps 3. What this does is we've already made a custom send. We've made a send and we've adjusted the fader to something that we know we like. So rather than doing that whole process again for each send, all I have to do is copy it. Option or alt, drag over to this one. Boom. And look, when I click on it, it's in the same spot. Option, alt, drag over to this one. As you can see, it's the same. These are 3 sends that are identical because I made one the way I like it, and then I option dragged it to the next, which basically creates a copy. Okay, next. Configure the delay effects return. Click on Insert Selector A on the D-Delay track and choose under delay menu Mod Delay 3. Ooh, this is good stuff. Okay. Here is our delay track right there. Insert. Boom. So they want us to do a multi-mono plugin. Delay, mod delay 3. There we go. And they want us to do something in the sync section towards the bottom. Click on the quarter note icon so that it becomes highlighted. This one right here. This is definitely, again, like I said, this is a music session. These are, so if you play music, you'll recognize this is like 8th note, quarter note, you know, half note, full note, that sort of a thing. Like this is a full note. That's half note, that's a quarter note, that's an 8th note, that's a 16th, etc., etc. So those are different symbols. So all you have to do if you don't know that stuff is just go by what they show you in the picture, and you'll be fine. Choose quarter note. Set the feedback to 15 to 25%. I'm gonna make it 25%. I love feedback. And then close the plugin window. Okay. So about 25%. There it is. Close the window. So now basically we created a send. It's sending 1, 2, 3. These 3 tracks to this delay that has been modified with a 25% feedback, doing something with the quarter note. Got it. Okay. So enable solo safe mode. We learned about this last week. This effectively makes this aux track always audible, so you can't turn it off, which, you know, normally on aux tracks you don't want to turn them off. You create an aux track because you want stuff to route through it. So the last thing you want is when you're bouncing your mix is for, like, you didn't solo safe your aux track and it got muted somehow, and oops, damn it, I just did a 90-minute mix and that one aux track was off. Ugh, if only I solo safed it. That's what solo safe is. So command click or control click on Windows, the aux track, to put it in a solo safe. So there is right there. Reverb, as you can see, is already there because it's kind of grayed out. So command click on the solo button on the delay aux track. Now that's grayed out as well. Do it again. So these two aux tracks now are always on. I can't turn them off unless I like undo solo safe. So great. Adjust the volume fader for the delay aux input track while playing back to set an appropriate level. You might want to reduce it by 5 dB or so. All right, let's see what it sounds like. See, the snaps have a little more like, that's the delay effect. Like before it was like, now it's more like, just gives it a little thicker sound. They wanted it to be more subtle, so I'll bring it down a little bit. All right. Okay, so last but not least, adding processing on the master fader. We learned about the master fader a little bit last week. This is what it's all about. All these channels are going in the master fader, and we want, in this case, looks like it's a maximizing plugin. It's a plugin that will push the volume of our mix all the way up to the very edge, almost at 0 dB FS, but not quite. So it's as loud as it can go without distortion. And it takes the quiet parts and pumps them up so they're louder as well. This is basically a compressor and a limiter. We're limiting the total volume so it doesn't go into the red, and we're compressing the dynamic range, so it's not, so the loudness can only go up to here and the quiet parts won't go below this, you know, this imaginary zone. So anything that's too quiet gets pumped up, anything that's too loud gets pushed down, and then it's basically compressed in this sort of like, I don't know, sort of like dynamic range, if you will. If it even says right here, I believe, yes, do not reduce the threshold too far, as this can lead to reduced dynamic range and distort your signal. I'll show you what that sounds like. But what we're going to do here is something that all engineers do. At the end of their mix, they throw a maximizer, or in this case, a compressor limiter, on a master fader track, basically just to add one more little sweet punch to the sound. Because, yeah, we could add this one filter to every single track, but then our processor is getting taxed all to hell. So why not just add it to the master track, and it just applies it to the whole mix? So much less processing power being used. And this is just sort of the standard. So insert selector A, choose multi-channel plugin, Dynamics Maxim. And then while playing back the session, configure the settings to get a loud signal. Try setting the threshold between -5 and -8 and the ceiling around -0.3. Okay. So here is the master fader. One way you can tell, it's got the epsilon Greek symbol on it. Like I said, every type of track has a symbol. This is the audio track, which is a waveform. This is an aux track, which is a down arrow, letting you know that audio is passing through it. And then this is the master fader track, epsilon. So, as you can see, master fader tracks don't have sends because master faders are always at the end of the line. There's nowhere for it to go after that. So, you can't send it anywhere. So, there are no sends, but there are inserts. So we'll click on the first one and multi-channel plugin, dynamics, Maxim. There's a lot of them and they're fun to play with, but for this exercise, choose Maxim. Okay, up until now, this is a little shortcut for you. Up until now, you'll see that when I've been playing, we're not seeing any numbers. So when I've got Maxim on, I want to be able to see that my ceiling is, for example, at negative 16.3, but I can't see any numbers here. Sometimes you'll open up a session and you'll be in what's called narrow mix mode. I don't like narrow mix mode. So if you want to get out of it, or if you accidentally go into it and you're like, how did I get here? You hit, I believe it's Option Command M. There it is. Or Alt Control M on Windows. Option Command M, Alt Control M, and that's M as in mix. So now I could see the numbers again. Oh, thank goodness. That's bugging me. So note that my ceiling is at negative 16.3. Here is 16 decibels. Watch. So this is a pretty quiet mix to begin with, but you know, if I brought up, let's say, just bring everything up. Say this is a pretty loud mix, right? Then, watch what happens when my ceiling is at 0. It lets it go to 0. If I bring my ceiling down to, let's see, 10. Here's 10. Watch, it'll only go up to 10. If I bring the ceiling up to what they want it to, negative 0.3. It's, as you can see, it's getting really close, but it's not hitting the red because the ceiling is right under 0, which would be, you know, distortion. So this is how, when you want to make sure your mix doesn't go into the red, you have a ceiling that's right below 0, and that prevents it from happening. Now let's look at the threshold. There's a lot of like quiet parts, right? Watch when I increase the threshold. Here's another way to look at it. When my threshold's at 0, watch the dynamic range, the meter. The quiet parts are really quiet, the loud parts are loud. See how it goes, jump, jump, jump. But if I increase the threshold, I'm pushing the quiet parts to be louder, so it never really gets too quiet, and it always just kind of, everything is just loud. That's compression, and too much compression makes things sound artificial and actually kind of distorted, because then you're pushing everything up and it's squished underneath the ceiling, and even though you're not going into the red, you still hear distortion because all this quiet stuff is artificially being pushed up and compressing against the ceiling a little bit too hard. So no threshold. As you can see, it's not even ever going below negative 10 because I'm telling the threshold to never, I'm basically adding 10 decibels according to this. I'm adding I'm adding 11 decibels of power to the quiet parts, so it never goes below 10 basically. And the more you add, look, there's no dynamic range at all. And it just sounds kind of crunchy. Even though I'm not distorting, I'm pushing all the quiet parts to be so loud that the whole thing just kind of sounds squished, for lack of a better way to put it. So you want a little compression. You want a little, not a lot. So they suggest something between 5 and 6. Here's none. Here's negative 5.6. So we still have some dynamic range, but the quiet parts are given a little bit of a boost, so the whole thing just has more punch to it. This is totally an aesthetics thing. Some people like compression, some don't. But this is how you achieve it. It's through the Maxim tool. And it's a common thing that they do in all music at some point in the process of mixing. Okay, so we've done that. Oh, adding dither. Dither, this is totally a music thing. You won't do this in sound design at all. But dither is something you do when, and again, they talk about this in chapter 10, is something you do when you are reducing the bit rate. Click on Insert Selector B on the master track and select multi-channel plugin Dither, Power Dither, and choose 16-bit resolution type 2. They talk about this in the book, about what all these different types are. This is not something you really need to get too wrapped up in as sound designers. You just kind of need to know what dither is and when you would use it. And you only use it when, on a master track, when you're going to bounce something at a lower bit rate, because it smooths it out a little bit. So dither, power dither. And then we're going to choose a preset or 16-bit type 2. All right. And again, this is something you're probably not even going to hear. It's not like the Maxim tool where you can hear the difference. As you can see, there's like no sliders for us to work with. It's just, like I said, it's almost like a Gaussian blur. When you've got some grain in your image and you add a little bit of blur to sort of obscure the grain, that's what a dither is. It's kind of like on or off. There's really nothing to it besides that. So we do that, and then we bounce the session, create an interleave stereo 16-bit, and save it to your thing, your hard drive, and then send that to me. So basically what you want to do is close that, file, bounce mix, and since we're doing a dither, we want this to be interleaved 16-bit, because we're lowering the bit depth, and that's why we're using dither in the first place. Send it to your bounce file folder. Call it bounce, hit bounce, make it offline, or you can be online and listen to it. That's really the smart way to do it, but for this tutorial purpose, we'll do it offline. And then when this is done, what I would like you to do is send me a picture of, send me a picture of your mix window, because I want to see your sends, I want to see your filters, and send me the audio bounce that you just did. And then that's it. That's it. That's the end of the 110 book. That is the end of 600 pages of Pro Tools madness. Whew. All right, on to the final audio post session. Congratulations, you made it to the end of these 2 epic volumes. Yeah, I hope you love Pro Tools. By now you either love it or you hate it, right? Okay, so send me the screenshot and the bounce file, and I'll see you in class.